We are Jouraph. We show how content disseminates across the web. So right now, media organizations have no way to know how their content spreads across the web. Current products are focused on the flow of users rather than the flow of information. By using graph analytics and natural language processing, we intend to show media organizations like think tanks how their content is being spread across the web. In addition, we want to provide a visualization tool that helps journalists and media organizations see how individual stories are connected to the rest of journalism. So before we show you our product, we want to introduce ourselves. I'm Derek Howard. I'm a computer science major.
My name is Caroline Watkins. I'm an international convergence journalism major.
My name is Megan Hill, and I'm a strategic communications major.
My name is Christian. I'm a computer science and economics major.
I'm Jonah, and I'm a computer science major.
All right, so today we just have the demo for you, and then we're going to talk a little bit about our business with Jonah. So it's just going to be me and Jonah, and we really invite you to ask questions afterward. So this is the page you're presented with when you first land on Jouraph. This is before you've put a story in, and this page just kind of highlights some of the things we can do with graph analytics at a global scale. So most things that look at trending documents look at which documents are being, or like which websites are being talked about the most on social media, or which things are being clicked on the most. But we want to show you which documents journalists are linking to the most. We see this page as being especially useful for journalists because they can kind of see, oh, these pieces of content are really valuable right now. Everyone's linking to this. What's it about? And then we also can show you that at a topical level, and we show you some topics that are trending as well. So when you enter a story, you get the story view. On the left hand, you get some of our analysis about that story, and those are just some things that we think are really important to show you. And then on the right, you get our graph. More about that graph. So we built this graph using hyperlinks on a story. So we inputted this story about The Hill, published by The Hill, sorry, about Trump in North Korea. Now this story links to a New York Times story, and it links to the Arms Council Association, which is a think tank about nuclear non-proliferation. And so we show that this story is connected to these two stories by hyperlink. And then this is further connected to a United Nations report. But more excitingly, we can show you which stories are connected to you. So most analytics platforms, like I said earlier, are really interested in showing you how users are interacting with your site. But for organizations that care more about how their content spreads across the web, like think tanks, we think it's really valuable to show, oh, these organizations are all linking to this report. You can really see that your report's getting a lot of exposure. So on the left-hand side, we show you some metadata about the story. We show you the author. So if you're a media organization and you want to look at a specific author work, see kind of who they rely on the most, you can click on the author and see which organizations they rely on the most. And you can also click on a topic, and that's just like the topics on the landing page, where you'll see documents most valuable. Below that are our novel analytics. Now we have 4 analytics that we propose right now. We have to build the graph before we know how exciting these are, but we kind of think these are the ones that we're really excited about. So we have the top 2, prevalence and relevance. These both have to do with how many stories are linking to you. So prevalence is how many stories are linking to you total, weighted by how popular the sites are that are linking to you. So if you have like a really popular site like the New York Times or something linking to this report, then it's really prevalent. Or if you have 100 smaller organizations linking to this report, it's also really prevalent. Relevance is similar, except instead of the weight of the organization, it's how recent it is. So more recent links are more important to relevance. And so if a lot of organizations have linked to this story recently, we think, oh, that's a really relevant report. The bottom 2 have to do with our natural language processing. So we have originality, and while we're scraping the web to build this graph database of news, we're keeping track of all the language that you use. So we're keeping track of like strings of words. And if you share a lot of those strings of words with other stories, then we think it's a less original. And this metric we think is especially useful when you're looking at the journalist view to see how much content they're using from other sources. And we also think it's really useful if you've created a report to see, kind of guess which organizations are talking about your report. So if I created this report on the Hill, and then I looked at one of these stories up here, and I saw that it wasn't as original, then I would know, okay, these are probably pretty related. And it kind of helps you explore the graph. And breadth is the opposite, so it's how different it is. If you have organizations linking to your report and they're super different, then we think that has a large breadth. It's relevant to a lot of different topics. So in this example, the graph is pretty small, so it's pretty easy to explore by hand. But if we had a much larger graph, a story with a lot of connections, these documents are the ones that we think you should explore first. So the sites that link to this story are the ones that we think would be most relevant to organizations that care about getting their information out there. And so we rank this by how similar the content is and how important those organizations are. And then below that is the other direction, notable documents. And these are the things that the story you input link to that get a lot of attention from other sources. So now to talk about how our business works, I'm going to hand it over to Jonah.
Thanks, Derek. So since we're doing the shortened version of the presentation, I'll just give you an idea of what you missed from yesterday. Basically, Jouraph specializes in the creation, maintenance, and provision of a large data set that links the web's articles by their hyperlinks connecting each other to create a graph. Along with that, we also offer the Jouraph visualization tool, which serves two main purposes for our business. For smaller customers, such as journalists or researchers, it serves as the scope of their interaction with Jouraph. It's all they'll need. They don't need the intensive resources that companies like media organizations or think tanks might require. For media organizations or think tanks that might require more, it serves as an example of the possibilities of our data set and kind of a teaser. So our goals focus on providing these think tanks, journalists, media organizations, and researchers with the opportunity to understand and see how their information disseminates across the web and interacts with other organizations and other media on the internet. Inherent in that is our goal of creating a more visible network of our data across the web. We believe that the more visible, the more accessible this information is, the better we can streamline the research process for both journalists and researchers. So, I mentioned previously the Jouraph visualization tool. And when it comes to our business model, it serves as an example of the possibilities of Jouraph before they really dive into the expensive stuff. Once they see the possibilities of the tool, then they can contract out access to our data set based on the costs to us, how intensive those are, how frequent they are, and we would offer that at a reasonable price based, which we're able to do because of our exceedingly low operating costs when it comes to storage, hosting, and the like. So thank you guys for coming out. Now, if you have any questions, please ask.
Yeah, it looks like we're running super ahead, so we have time, and so.
Any questions? Oh, well, great. We've got two. One right here.
Yeah, I don't know if I may have missed this, but what's like the problem you see Jouraph addressing?
Right. So there's a lot of analytics tools out there right now for media organizations that have a lot of traffic directly to their site. So, if they have advertisers and stuff, they really want to turn those metrics up. But for media organizations that produce content that's less about getting visibility on their site and more about getting visibility everywhere. And we think our main customer would be think tanks, but this could also be scientific organizations. we want to show them a way, like their kind of exposure to everything. So if they have a report on a think tank, here, let me go back to the. So this article published on The Hill was actually written by an expert at a think tank. And so we really want to show organizations that maybe don't care so much about how many people they get directly, and we want to show them, oh, here's all the places your content is being used. And that's really what we want. It's kind of a performance metric for organizations that don't care directly about traffic as much.
Great. Second question.
Hi, Derek.
Hey.
So earlier in your presentation, you had said that you will weight hyperlinks according to like how relevant this news organization is and how many times it's been linked to such and such news organization. How are you going to weigh those news organizations in your metrics?
So our first idea is that we're going to use Alexa Rank. And so that's a company that was bought out by Amazon that just looks at traffic. And so the news organizations that get the most traffic would be ranked higher. And the reason is because there's, if you owned 100 different news organizations, and you could really easily make those all point to the same thing. And we didn't want those kinds of organizations to have like undue power in our graph. And so that way, it's only the most popular organizations that have a lot of weight in terms of that metric.
But then wouldn't the Daily Mail have more relevance than, say, sorry. Wouldn't the Daily Mail have more relevance than, say, Politico in that sense? Because the Daily Mail is, a major tabloid newspaper.
Yeah, so if the Daily Mail was the only one, and I'd actually have to see which one gets more traffic, but if the Daily Mail was the only organization that linked to a document, or Politico and a bunch of other organizations linked to that document, the document would still be more relevant. But if Politico was the only media organization that linked to a document, and Daily Mail linked to a different document was the only organization, then yeah, it'd probably appear. But we don't expect the documents only linked to by a single organization would ever appear in that view. All right, thank you.
So thank you.